Welcome back into Top Shelf, presented by Molson. Everyone in. We are coming at you guys post Canada Czech.
Oh boy.
Quarterfinals.
That was epic.
Oh my God. The only way to sum it up, I think Elliot Friedman said it perfectly after. That's just the type of game you gotta smoke a cigarette after.
We could all use a dart.
Who's got a dart right now?
Seriously. For reference, a few of us were here watching it in the studio, so we've actually got clip of that to see the highs and lows. I think this was just from overtime, but if the camera was rolling for the whole game, like
it would have been.
Oh my God, some of the crash outs.
Roller coaster.
Yeah. So here we go at the start of overtime. I just the vibes were at an all-time low.
The chair takes a
Whose chair is
with
that?
T-Mac crashing out, and then finally Marner.
Matt Massey coming over.
Yeah,
from behind the camera.
Hugs.
I love
it.
Oh man, like the emotions were
Levi
insane.
losing it right there.
But
The relief on your face after the goal.
So the things that were going through my head watching this game, like 3 minutes left or 4 minutes left before the Suzuki tying goal, and I'm sitting here thinking, I said to Tyler, I'm like, is this going to be the worst loss in Hockey Canada history? And I was like, you know what? That'd make for a good title at least. You know, we'll get some clicks on this video.
Nothing like some content coping.
I was honestly
Exactly.
thinking the same thing. Like, this would be worse than Nagano, Turin.
That's why I said it.
Because
96
Nagano,
World
at
Cup
least they were in a
combined.
shootout,
Yeah.
right?
And it was in the semis, I think they lost in
Semis,
that
yeah.
one. I wouldn't exactly know. I wasn't around for that one, but I would have been around for this one.
Easy flex there about
Yeah.
your age.
But man, yeah. So I mean, let's talk about it. I guess we can go with the biggest takeaways. Josh, what do you have from this game?
Big game Mitch Marner. I mean,
Yeah.
how can we not start there? That OT winner was insane, right? I mean,
So sick.
he starts skating up the ice, and I'm almost thinking, okay, you got to like peel back. Don't try and go through three guys in OT. But what the heck do I know, right?
Yeah.
I mean, dangles through the backhand top corner. That was just so sick. And I mean, this is a guy who's been scrutinized for not stepping up in these big moments. He does it there. He did it at the Four Nations in OT against Sweden too. So maybe when that maple leaf is red or black on his jersey and not blue, he pressures off a little bit and he can deliver.
Seriously.
It was like quintessential Mitch Marner too, where he's splitting the D, and I'm just thinking, oh, he's gonna find Celebrini. This can be a backhand pass. Celebrini's wide open. Here we go. But it ends up being him, and I thought, oh, did that go off a stick? Did that get deflected in some way, shape, or form? And no, he just roofed it backhand. It was a gorgeous goal. Dostal maybe cheating a bit there to the right side of the net, but no, full credit to Mitch Marner, a guy who's been through the ringer, to say the least, in terms of his coming up in big games, and that's a signature moment for him.
Absolutely, and you think about the Sweden overtime winner. You think about this goal now. He also sets up the McDavid overtime winner in the Four Nations final. As much as we've talked about Mitch Marner and the Maple Leafs thing, but man, it has been incredible to see him come through with Team Canada here, and it's been so much fun to watch. Like, we've talked so much over the tournament of like depth scoring or some things like that, and he comes through in that moment. And the other thing I loved on that goal is it starts with Celebrini rushing the puck up the ice, drop pass, which everyone seems to hate, but it does work when it works. And you have all three Czech players lined up stationary at the blue line, and it just sets it up perfectly for a player like Mitch Marner who can just dice through and just remarkable.
Well, what happened on that Sweden goal, right? It was Crosby making a backhand pass. That was like two zones deep, and then Marner coming through and scoring. It was actually kind of a similar goal.
Yeah.
In he goes on the different side of the ice, and he's the defensemen are lined up differently, but at the end of the day, it's a drop pass to Mitch Marner, and he scores a goal.
Incredible.
This the 3-on-3 too. That was really our first taste of best on best 3-on-3, especially at this level. And I was like sitting here being like, let's just go McDavid, McKinnon, Makar, and don't take them off. Like those three guys on the ice at the same time. And credit to Czech, man. Like they stopped him. They stopped him through most of this game. Obviously, we found the Suzuki goal late and then that overtime winner, but those guys really, it was like kind of the first time where at least like the McKinnon Makar aspect, like they felt stoppable. Connor McDavid still did Connor McDavid things, but yeah, incredible. Your biggest takeaway, John?
Canada finally had its depth coming through at the end there. Like you mentioned, Suzuki, he scores the tying goal. Obviously, Mitch Marner scores the winner. It was getting pretty dicey there, where coming into the third period, Canada had 16 slot shots. 10 of them from one line, 10 of them from that McDavid, McKinnon, Celebrini line, which you expect is going to lead in most categories, but you want something from those other three lines, and it just wasn't there. And, I didn't mind the fourth line. I didn't mind what they were able to do in terms of zone time throughout the game and just sort of winning their shifts. But before the Marner goal, I'm thinking, this is not looking like a great game for Stone, who gave the puck away. Before the Suzuki goal, he has a wide open net early in the game. and rings it off the post, and otherwise for the rest of the tournament has looked pretty mediocre. So good on Suzuki for, he was in on the forecheck on his goal. He stuck with it in terms of it being a bit of a broken play, comes out to the point, and then he puts a great tip on a shot that was way wide. Talk about sort of handling adversity well. Yeah. And for this team in general, it was pretty, chalk through the round robin. They didn't see many stumbles there. And even against the Czech team, their first game, we came and we talked about how, there's not a single player that disappointed. Well, this game, not only did they have some players disappoint, but there was a point there where, they're down in the third period and, 4 minutes left. And it was not looking like they were going to challenge for a medal. No. And here they are. So, a good result. But, you look at some of the performances on this team lower down the lineup. And if you're John Cooper, you're hitting that video room and trying to figure out what's the best combination with that forward group, and then also on the back end, which we can get into later if you want.
That's the one thing I couldn't stop thinking about. That first game, they not only handled the Czech, but that first line so well, and then now you have this game where it felt like when McKinnon and McDavid and Celebrini weren't on the ice, it was the most even, or if anything, Czech had the advantage. And mind you, these are some of the best players in the NHL, being evenly matched with the oldest player in the tournament, Roman Cervenka.
Yeah.
I was so frustrated watching Andre Palat play well and Kashe, butcher it.
David Camp,
they were matching perfectly, and it felt like a hockey, a standard NHL game where third line and fourth lines are matching up, but that wasn't the case. So
Czech was better in the first and the third for the most part. The second Canada dominated, but Czech really took it to them after that Celebrini goal early on, and then in the third period until Suzuki tied it up.
Yeah, and as great as Canada's top players have been and are, you do not win a tournament like this unless you get contributions throughout the entire lineup, and Canada got that in the biggest moments they needed today.
Yeah, big time. So they needed it bad. Kyle, biggest takeaway?
Well, unfortunately, there is one big negative coming out of this remarkably fun game, and it is the injury to Sidney Crosby. And whether he will come back in this tournament or what his situation is going forward, we saw post-game John Cooper didn't really have much of an update, but basically said the sentiment in the second intermission was, don't let this be Sidney Crosby's last Olympic game, which I love that sentiment going into the third period. I love that sentiment from the team overall. I really hope this isn't Crosby's last Olympic game. I hope we get to see him back at some point in this tournament here. But now for Team Canada, the question is both how do you replace him in the lineup, but also how do you just replace the aura of Sidney Crosby as well? Because it isn't just the lineup for Sidney Crosby, it's everything else he brings. He's the guy who was there in 2010. He was the guy who was there in 2014, who, if he was on the bench there in the third period, maybe things aren't as tight as they were against Czechia. Maybe he's able to settle things down. Maybe he's able to push through and get that extra goal or something like that. And we're not talking about this tight extra period game that Canada had to pull out of their hat, essentially. So I'm very curious to see how that transforms over these coming days and coming games here for Team Canada. And it's an interesting parallel to the women's team as well, where Marie-Philippe Poulin gets hurt.
Right.
The captain, who has been there for so many Olympics, who has scored so many big goals for Team Canada, she gets hurt in the round-robin game. Canada wins without her, but then also falters significantly against the United States, and she's been powering through an injury. And in the semifinals against Switzerland, scores the two goals that Canada only scored in that game against Switzerland, despite outshooting them almost 5-1 or whatever it ended up being in that game. That's the kind of stuff that you expect from a Sidney Crosby or Marie-Philippe Poulin. If Crosby comes back, can you expect that kind of thing from him? If he comes back, can you expect him to play in that top six role again? That's the big questions coming out of this game for me, because you got past that first test now, you're into the semifinals here, but the captain has a big question mark.
Yeah, absolutely.
I thought it was also the way that Crosby got hit and went down. It was kind of like a reflection of how physical the tournament's been. And then also the Czechs' game plan clearly in that game where... Radko Gudas was running around trying to hit everything he could.
The Radko Gudas game plan.
Yeah. That was essentially it. Filip Hronek, all the big bodies that they have, they were clearly, it was probably priorities were physicality on their stars, stand up at the blue line as a 5-man unit and make them dump it in. and go from there. And it worked for the vast majority of the game in terms of keeping it close and then grabbing a lead. And it also led to a bunch of odd man rushes for Czechia, where if Canada's pressing, if they're feeling like they can't get anything to the slot, so they pass it back to the point, well, those point shots get blocked and Czechia goes the other way. So
and that's exactly how they got the go-ahead goal in the third period.
Exactly.
It was a great block by Hurdle there on a pass back to Harley at the point. He activates in, takes the shot, gets caught going back the other way, and a great 3-on-2 rush for Czechia there. But that's like the recipe for an upset, and Czechia played it almost perfectly today.
And that's how they almost won it, with Matisz blocking the Devontae shot in the waning minutes of regulation there. Crazy. And having that breakaway where Binnington makes the huge save. So, yeah, I mean...
Big moments for Binnington.
Yeah.
Oh, my God, yeah. We haven't even talked about him yet. It's the Jordan Binnington effect, man.
Yes.
Like, he's going to get you down. He's going to get you up sometimes. But,
yes, he is.
The roller coaster
Boy,
ride.
he made some big saves. And he
some
seems
huge saves.
to, over the past 2 years with Four Nations and the Olympics now, he does seem to have the big saves in him. So, thankful for that. And something else, too, you guys are talking about how Czech kind of had this game plan. And again, credit to them, because I think it was Matisz that said before the game, he's like, "Oh, we let Canada win the first one because we're not going to beat them twice
Pretty
in a row."
joke.
But they talk about learning from that first. Like completely different team. So yeah, I mean, great battle test for Canada. Hopefully, this is what they need to a little kick in the butt here to get through the last two games here. But boy, yeah, what a game. Speaking of your point on Crosby here, again, at the time that we're taping this, it's just after the game. We don't know yet if he's going to come back, if he's going to be out. But in a world where it was his last Olympic game and he doesn't return, who is the next guy to step up? This is Next Man Up, presented by Molson. Josh, who do you think needs to fill the Sidney Crosby void the most?
Nathan MacKinnon. I mean, all of his production, or most of his production anyway, has come on the power play or when he's linked up on the wing with McDavid and Celebrini. And I know he might be playing through something. He doesn't look quite 100%, but we need to see Nathan MacKinnon drive his own line. And I think if Crosby is out for the semifinals, MacKinnon is an easy switch. Put him back on center, maybe put him between Stone and Marner and let him drive that line. But yeah, Nathan MacKinnon needs to get going at 5-on-5.
Yeah, I think even if Crosby's back in the lineup, like MacKinnon's got to step up in terms of expectations versus what he's put on tape so far, where it's kind of classic at Nathan MacKinnon. If he, the more sort of physical and frustrated he seems, you can probably, bet that he hasn't been producing to his own level. And you see, McDavid's weaving through the defensive structures, and he's kind of being typical McDavid. And MacKinnon seems to be getting stuck in the mud in the neutral zone.
Mishandling pucks sometimes.
And just
uncharacteristic of him.
Yeah, he just seems to not being able. He's not like in the small areas where he usually excels. You're just not seeing it. You're not seeing sort of the explosiveness physically, where with the puck protection, there's something obviously off there. I don't know if it's something that can be fixed or if he's like too hurt to really contribute at a super high level. But nevertheless, if we're looking up and down that list, even if he stays on the top line, he's been the third best player on that top line so far, whereas you expect him to be at worst the second best. So I think that's a good show.
Definitely.
And I'm really interested to see, as you mentioned there, if he stays on the top line here, because all of these games that Canada has gone to that super loaded top line with MacKinnon there on the right wing, they've gone back to their kind of preset Wilson on that top line right wing spot for the beginning part of the next game. I'm really curious to see, after Wilson plays under 10 minutes today and we see so much of MacKinnon on that top line because of the Crosby injury, if it starts with MacKinnon on that top line or if they again go to MacKinnon on a separate line and maybe make that in-game adjustment. And I think that's the big thing for me here is if MacKinnon's on that top line, well, then it's tough to be like a Crosby replacement. But if he's in that second line center role, you need him to be that second best player in the world that we expect of him.
I think if Crosby is out, you have to at least start the game with MacKinnon centering his own line.
And I would expect
the
them to
depth
go that
just
way.
hasn't been good enough. I know they came through in some bigger moments today, but I think it would make a lot of sense to use that super line if needed, like break glass in case of emergency.
Plus, you can bring Sam Bennett back in here, and maybe he's a center, and you've got Horvat and Bennett as your third and fourth centers.
They had Reinhart playing center, and the guy has not been a regular center in maybe 5 to 6 years, so that's not ideal.
No, yeah. John, your guy?
I'll go with Mark Stone here, where this guy had a huge performance against France and just sort of toying with the opposition in terms of his hockey IQ and his ability to break up plays and turn it into offense. He had a really bad giveaway in this game that turned into a Czech goal where he was trying to go cross ice in the neutral zone. Pretty risky, but I don't hate it, the idea of it, given it's worked in the past in this tournament, and that's sort of Mark Stone's forte is sort of these passes that just evade anyone but his teammate. So I don't hate that idea. I don't think he's had a bad tournament by any means, but I feel like when you take Crosby off that second line, it ends up being Stone and Marner and whoever, fills that spot. Well, we saw Marner step up in overtime. I'd like to see what Mark Stone can do with presumably an elevated role, or at least elevated workload and responsibility. And just there's a pocket there for him to fill where I think we're noticing a divide in the forward group where there's sort of a top 6 and a bottom 6. Even though they're completely stacked 1-14, some of these players just haven't really gotten going to the extent that you would expect. So my mind goes back to Mark Stone, also a veteran, a guy who's won the cup, like a guy who should be rising to the occasion as this tournament continues.
Yeah, absolutely. No gripes with that. I mean, it's not going to be like it's easy enough for us to sit here and say, Connor McDavid needs to do more and stuff like that. But I think a guy like
it's hard
Mark
to
Stone,
say Connor McDavid could do
yeah,
more,
well, that
honest.
as well. But obviously, we're looking at some guys a little bit lower on the depth chart that might not have looked so good today. So I think Mark Stone's a perfect guy to slot in there. Kyle, I think you've got a similar guy like that.
Yeah, for me, it's Nick Suzuki. In terms of what Crosby has done for this team so far, he's centered that line with Marner and Stone. Well, the main change we've talked about, or the main change that a lot of people have focused on after the Crosby injury, was McKinnon back to the top line, and rightfully so, given the way that line was working today. But the other straight swap they made was Suzuki to that second line, or to that center spot, alongside Marner and Stone in that Crosby role. So quite literally, the Crosby replacement today was Nick Suzuki. Now, do you keep that going forward? Do you change that? I think that late goal certainly helps the case for Suzuki to play in that significant role continuing going forward. I think there's a strong argument for Bo Horvat to be in that kind of role. I think there's an argument for even Sam Bennett to potentially be in that kind of role. But I really like Suzuki there because then he's off the wing and into the center where that's his natural position. That's where he's been so good for Montreal in recent years. He had that clutch goal at the end of the third period. I think you can at least reward him to stay in that slot going forwards. And I think in terms of stylistically, what you want to do with that line, I think you can basically use it the exact same way you already were with Crosby there if Suzuki's there. And obviously he needs to step up at 5-on-5, and he has the chance earlier in the game and rings it off the outside post, and then he has the goal at the end of regulation. But outside of that, hasn't really had too many great moments in this tournament. I think he's somebody that you brought to the Olympics because of his two-way play and his ability to play center and bring some speed to the lineup. I think he ticks a lot of those boxes for what you would hope for in a center alongside Marner and Stone, and as that Crosby replacement on that line.
I do like him getting back to center, like you said, just his natural position and everything. And everyone always talks about how much easier it is to play wing, yes, but if you never play it, you can kind of feel restricted in a sense, where center, you're so free and you're always back and you can kind of roam anywhere. But when you're playing wing, it's like you're in a bit of a box, essentially, and it can be tough.
Yeah, he's been stuck on the wall a couple times.
Yeah.
And it's interesting you bring that up. Like, we love to talk about when we're doing these mock rosters. Oh, they've got all these centers. Just throw someone on the wing and he'll be fine. Easier said than done.
Some guys are just better at it than others.
Yeah, and if you never play wing, there are certain responsibilities that you never do as a center that wingers do, right? So to be thrown into that in this high leverage, type of hockey, I can understand why it would go sideways.
Yeah, the element of wing is easier to play, I think at least, comes from the defensive responsibility side. That's where Suzuki excels almost the most in his game, is that defensive responsibility and being able to transition the puck and being puck dominant in that way up the ice. And then obviously in Montreal having those wingers and Slavkovsky and Caulfield, who are very different players who can work off of him. Playing on the wing takes away a lot of that side of his game. So it's not that surprising that he's maybe struggled a little bit to create in that role. So I'm really interested about that switch to center, assuming that's the way that they go there. And I would definitely at least start the next game, the semifinals, with him in that role.
Well, and props to Suzuki for stepping up here. It wasn't looking pretty for him. Yeah. And it kind of aligns with the type of NHL player he is. Him and Caulfield are two of the most clutch players in the NHL. You turn on a 3-on-3 and it's him and Caulfield just going to town. So clearly there's something there in terms of his big game ability, because he could have kind of crumbled there when things were looking like it was the Nick Suzuki failure game, if you will, with hitting the post and just generally looking out of place, and he stepped up.
That's his last shift of the game. If he doesn't score there or anything like that, that's the last time he's on the ice for a game that is almost looking like one of the worst losses for Hockey Canada on the men's side. And instead, he's the hero that pushes it to overtime.
Yeah. Again, depth coming through when we needed it most, so hopefully we get more of that next game. I've got kind of a guy who needs to step up and a guy who I think will step up and fill the void. First of all, Sam Reinhart. He has been invisible to me. He's still somehow on that first power play. He has an assist against France. That's all. That's all the points he's got in this tournament so far. And for a guy, a 50-plus goal scorer, it kind of... When he got named he was one of the guys that
he was
one
of the first
one of the first six. And last year, he kind of had his coming out party the last few years. So like last year, seeing him on Four Nations caught me off guard at first, and I'm like, oh, this guy's good, and he had a good tournament. He's just I don't know what it is. I don't know if he needs someone to set him up better, and maybe he should be, but he's on the power play. Like he's out there in a spot where he should be getting perfect passes and producing, and he's not. So I think he needs to step up. A guy who will fill this void of Crosby, who has seemingly filled the void of Crosby in every dynamic so far. Macklin Celebrini, another 3-point game. He now has 9 points in 4 games, 19 years old. I mean, we can't stop talking about him. Incredible stuff. And we had PK Subban on the show a couple weeks ago, and he sat down and told us before the tournament started that this guy is a cross between Crosby and McDavid, which I don't know if you can get higher praise other than saying maybe he's a Gretzky-McDavid cross. But
and that praise coming from a Norris Trophy defenseman.
Exactly. And a guy who clearly knows some hockey in PK Subban, and the way that he's turned his game up even another level against the best in the world on this stage has been incredible, and I think he's going to continue to do so if Sidney Crosby's out. But I mean, we gotta talk about him a little bit and show some props, because what he's been able to do, especially being as young, is he the youngest player in the tournament, or he's the youngest Canadian? I think
youngest Canadian for sure. There's a Latvian defenseman who's dropped eligible.
Right.
So.
Yeah. He's the third youngest NHLer, like period. So
yes, exactly.
He's super young.
Yeah, I mean, and you guys have anything else to touch on just in terms of like to me, it's like that first line, that stacked line that they're rolling out has him on it. And going, you look back to the start of the NHL season or even a month or two in, and we're like, oh, could this guy be on the roster? And all of a sudden, he's one of those 3 horses on that line. It's incredible, really, to watch.
Well, I mean, we were just talking about how it's not always as easy as it sounds going from center to wing. And Celebrini is a guy I would assume has played center his entire life growing up and everything. So for him to just seamlessly fit on the wing with McDavid, where you're facing each team's best every shift, I mean, it's just super, super impressive.
He clearly has the killer instinct. Like it's hard to quantify, it's hard to grasp, but
factor.
Like the it factor, like you name it, whatever that label you want to throw on him, he has it. And I love how complete his game is. I love how he's a dog on the bone when the puck's free and the forecheck's going, the cycle's going. He's always involved. There's not a single ounce of him that is a passenger. He's a driver out there, and he's so assertive. And you mix all that sort of like, I don't know if it's intangible because you can quantify some of it, but with his superstar skill set too. And the biggest thing with him breaking out this year, he had a fantastic rookie season, but to leap from like, oh, that was an awesome rookie season to like top 10 player in the world, maybe top 5, is just an insane leap. But a lot of it is a shot. I think he's not dusting off the puck like he used to. I think his release is better than it was last year, and it's clearly showing in this tournament. 5 goals in 4 games.
I think we could wax poetic about Macklin Celebrini for hours.
Yeah,
he is such a remarkable talent to watch. Like, and for a player that going into like his draft and through the draft process wasn't regarded as this like generational type player coming after Connor Bedard because of all the numbers that Bedard put up in junior, and yet it's Celebrini that is playing first line wing with Connor McDavid, and looks like that's going to be the duo for every major Canadian event for however long Connor McDavid plays. It has been so much fun to watch this kid. Like, he was not on the Four Nations roster last year, and he played the second most of any Canadian forward today. Over 22 minutes on the top line. Technically played more than Connor McDavid. Obviously, some of that is just who gets shifts when and some things like that because it was all very close. But it is so remarkable, and it feels like we've almost just accepted it, that it's just normal.
It's well earned, right? It's not like this is fluky.
He was eligible to play at the World Juniors 2 months ago.
Crazy. Insane.
Like, it is insane what he is doing right now to not just be in that role and succeeding and with the tournament leading 5 goals and all of these things, but to gain the trust of the coaching staff immediately to go into that role and to excel in that role. And when Crosby goes down on the power play, guess what? It's Macklin Celebrini jumping up into that role as a 19-year-old. That is the part that I just can't get over, how young this kid still is and how remarkably good he is. Just a special, special talent, and it has been an absolute treat to watch him alongside Connor McDavid and all these players.
Well, and speaking of power plays, he took a penalty, an interference, which was like a little soft, but he goes to the box. I mean, what's going through your head when you're 19?
Yeah.
They score on that power play, the checks, but, Cooper continues to trust him, and he doesn't wilt, and he's on the ice for the OT winner. So like it seems like no moment has been too big for him, and you assume that continues. But I suppose like the jury's still out. Like, does he hit a wall in the semis or somewhere further? I would not bet that.
Not at all.
But he's just so young, and it's so incredible that like you just shake your head at it.
And like not just on the ice for the overtime winner as well, plays a significant role in that play developing and obviously assisting on it. Just a ridiculous tournament from such a special player.
Not to get too far ahead, but it's just crazy thinking about how good this guy might be in the next Olympics in 2030 when he's 23 years old and like really
Only
right in his
23.
prime. Like, oh
Insane.
man, it's crazy to think about.
I think too, one of the things that really makes me just shake my head, that's crazy, and it's no slight to Connor Bedard, but that was obviously a very real debate that has been had for the last 2 years since they basically went back to back. Who's better, Macklin Celebrini or Connor Bedard? And it's not even a question now. Obviously, you got one guy with 9 points in the Olympics. Connor Bedard didn't even make the team. So the fact that it went from that conversation, and not only that conversation, but it's kind of largely concluded that Bedard was the better player, to where we're at now, just incredible stuff. And for Canada, it's nice. I mean, it's kind of an embarrassment of riches at this point, but to have these guys coming up the ranks, I'm certainly not upset about it.
Like without Celebrini, they don't win this game.
No, absolutely. Yeah, and the kid's 19. He's 19 years old. Like I really, the World Juniors note is insane to me. Like,
should have loaned him.
Yeah,
could have used him against the other Czech team.
Honestly, yeah. Seriously, he could have probably single-handedly won that tournament.
Yeah, how many
himself
points
with
does
the
he
way
put
he's
up
playing.
if he's at the World Juniors this year?
It's not fair.
It's not fair
Him
at
and
all.
Schaefer.
Yeah, right.
But yeah,
Crazy.
getting into, it's been a lot of Canada talk, obviously, I think rightfully so. Getting into the other games, we had Slovakia beating Germany this morning 6-2. Any takeaways? I had higher hopes for Germany in this tournament. Obviously, they didn't pan out, really. I don't think Draisaitl really did what he needed to do. Slovakia, credit to them, like back to the semis, they've figured it out at international level. So, and it didn't even take a massive Slavkovsky effort. So I was happy to see that. Switzerland is, I've been tracking it as we've done the show, 2-1 over Finland right now with 2 minutes left in that game. So
Oh boy.
Slovakia and Switzerland in the semifinals. I don't think anybody had that on their bingo card. Certainly not
That'll
us.
happen if Sweden pulls off the upset today. And
Yeah.
in terms of like Slovakia, Germany, just to touch on that one quickly because it was the early game today. I think people had like Germany as the team that has been in the Slovakia role right now in terms of maybe a surprise just with their higher end talent and some of the things there. The depth just became too much of an issue for them. And Slovakia, with Samuel Halavai playing as well as he has and the contributions all throughout their lineup, like you're right, like they haven't relied on just Juraj Slavkovsky scoring every single goal for them. Like
Dvorsky's been great.
Yeah.
Dalibor Dvorsky's been awesome, and you've gotten some good defensive play, and Halavai's been great in that, and like Tom Tatar is playing an important role for his team, and like
Pospisil,
Pavel Regenda with 2 goals today. Like all of these things, like you needed like all of your players to play up to like their max potential, and it feels like all of their depth players have kind of done that so far, and it's going to be really fun to see them back in the semifinals. It'll be interesting to see who they end up matching up against in the semis. They got that important win out of the gate against Finland, and it has set them up for this brilliant path the entire way, where you look at what like Sweden has to do, try to go through USA, and if you win that game, then you're up against Canada, and then finally you would be into a gold medal game, a much easier path for Slovakia, and it's because of that important win they got out of the gate.
Yeah, and then like you mentioned, the last game we have on the agenda, Sweden USA, and I think I'll close things out with this because I was debating this early. Pre-game I was debating this, and then during this game when Canada was down, I started hitting myself in the head because I'm like, I can't believe I even let that thought enter my head.
We probably have video of you hitting yourself.
It might be on tape. But my question to you guys, and I think I know what your answer will be: Sweden USA. Would you rather Sweden win this game so Canada has an easier path, or do you want that Canada-USA matchup down the road? Where are you guys at with that?
I want Canada USA.
That's what I want.
I would rather Sweden win.
Oh, really? So you take the
USA
easier
scares me
path.
too much. I'm being fully biased. I mean, clearly. So, yeah, I'd rather see Sweden put together a good game and pull off the upset.
We've waited a long time for this. I want to see USA Canada. I want to see
That's-
some sort of matchup or at some point.
I think that's where I'm at. So
And we're going to get it in the women's final on Thursday
Yeah.
as well, which is kind of the opposite way that it's been going right now.
Seriously.
With USA looks like an absolute juggernaut. Canada has to figure some things out. For that one.
And honestly, on the men's side, like Sweden, based on their coaching, and they don't deserve to be advancing. It's not really the players' fault at this point. It's like what's going on with the coaching staff?
Yeah,
hockey karma, hockey gods.
I don't get it. It was nice that Forsberg got a shift in that first game, and now they're just like, let's end the debate. How about he just doesn't play?
Yeah, what? No, he's like on the top line. Like, how do you go from scratch? Yeah, and then now Brat's getting scratched. So
yeah, it's insane. So yeah, like I said, Sweden USA last game on the agenda, 3:10. So we'll be back on Tuesday after the finals gets played on Sunday to recap the entire tournament. It's been a ton of fun covering it. I mean, international best on best for the first time in 12 years. I think after today's game has certainly lived up to the hype.
Yes.
Safe to say. So yeah, thank you for everyone for watching back home. This has been Top Shelf presented by Molson, and we'll catch you in the next one.